Hello and welcome back to another video on Respect and to another edition of AEW Dynamite Out of 10, and all in is coming up fast on August 30th, but until then it's all about the Continental Challenge Cup. Two matches in the tournament took place, as well as we saw Kevin Knight defending his TNT Championship against Chris Jericho, so a lot going on. But as soon as we went live to the show in the arena, Real Ospreay came out to talk about his match with Kenny at All In. He talked about performing in Arena Mexico last week and how a great experience it was, and he shared a story about the first time he worked there and how he passed on the same day, found out the same day that his grandfather passed away. He said he's going to leave everything in the ring for the fans because that is what his grandpa would have wanted. He also called out Omega to join him in the ring with some insults, but he was greeted by the music of the Don Callis family instead. As Don was talking trash, RPV Vice attacked him from behind with Mark Davis and Jake Doyle. All four men stomped him into the mat until Omega showed up with a metal pipe. One of the smartest things AEW did in this feud was having Omega take Ospreay out when he had a chance, so saving him from an attack feels like a step backwards, even if Omega showed some animosity towards him after. Everything in this segment was entertaining, but it felt a bit filler. Nothing new was added to their story with this interaction, but it gave a chance for fans to see both men, which is part of what they paid for. The best part of Omega saying this would be the only time he helps Ospreay, because it opens the door for more people to go after Billy Goat between now and the pay-per-view, such as the Death Riders. We then got MJF, Nick Wayne and Mike Bailey in the first match of the night in a triple threat to determine who enters the Casino Gauntlet at number 2 at All In. And MJF rolled out the ring and joined the commentary table while Wayne and Bailey started the match in the ring. They quickly realised they should be going after MJF, so Speedball kicked him off the apron. MJF's a very versatile performer who's capable of working with any style, but there's something fun about seeing Wayne and Bailey mix their different kinds of high-flying offense together whenever they had an exchange, so he produced almost all of the most exciting spots. MJF did a great job making sure he wasn't forgotten. His villainous antics were a nice contrast to Wayne's flashier heel style. He even worked with Wayne temporarily to take advantage of his naivety. The match illustrates how AEW can pick random names and throw together a fun contest. All three stars worked great, and after a few calls, MJF got the armbar win on Wayne. And I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. We then got Jay White and David Finlay flashing off in the Continental Challenge Cup. The rules of the tournament prohibited anyone from joining them at ringside, so it's designed to be a fair match. Switchblade cancelled attack right after about taking control. Dueling chants broke out in the crowd as they traded strikes. These two have made their story feel personal, so it's no surprise when the match was more of a fight than a grappling clinic. They sold their intensity well, but it felt like an odd time for their first big singles encounter in AEW. It's kind of grudge match that should have been a bigger addition to a pay-per-view, but getting it on a regular episode of Dynamite was a bit strange. The company doesn't always have a big event to give fans anticipated showdown, even if it makes more sense from a business standpoint. Where White hit a German suplex and immediately started selling as if he had an injured neck. Finlay pounced on the injury, but Switchblade was able to make a comeback and hit his finisher to get the win and advance in another fun match, which I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. Adam Page, Bandido and Brody King then came out to celebrate winning the Trios titles last week at Grand Slam. It didn't take long for Swerve's music to hit. As soon as he appeared, Hangman was staring daggers at him. Swerve recounts his history of all three men over the last few years and talks about how he's now beaten all of them. Hangman said he watched Swerve do some terrible things and he has nothing to show for it. This is when Ricochet Demand and Lethal Switch came out to state their claim at a rematch. Ricochet brought up how Swerve doesn't have a trio to watch his back and told him to leave. Surprisingly, he did not without insulting Ricochet first. The segment ended without a fight, but did a good job of making trios feel important. The bouts of origin often felt less inconsequential, so yeah, it's encouraging that teams were expressing interest in them. As we then moved on to the TNT Championship match between Kevin Knight and Chris Jericho, Don Callis accompanied his client, but he didn't join the commentary team like usual. The Jet tried to get an early advantage, but the veteran was able to take control with a nice vertical suplex. After taking Knight out at ringside, he took a moment to sit with Paul White on the commentary table. Jericho was better in most recent runs than he has in years, and working with guys like Knight definitely helps. He's one of AEW's best young talents to be signed in recent memory, and he's quickly earning a reputation of being capable of putting on a great match for anyone. It never felt like the title was going to change hands, but having the Jet successfully retain over someone with the legacy of Jericho is always going to be valuable for an up-and-coming star. They did a good job making it feel competitive, but it never quite hit the top gear. We know both men have. Don used a screwdriver to attack Jericho behind the rest back, which allowed Knight to escape the Lion Tamer. Lionheart came close to winning despite the attack, but low blow followed by a crash landing gave Knight the win. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. We then got Chris Statlander, who was in action this week against Viva Van. He did not have a televised entrance, so we knew it was going to be quick. Stat had control for a few moments, but Van made a brief comeback. They did their best to make this feel competitive without having a lot of time to work. If they had more time, it feels like these two could have delivered a great performance, but they did decent work before Stat got the victory. Foley came out to interview Stat and informed her that she'll be in a fatal four-way for the TBS title next week with Persephone, Shida and Maya World, which should be a fun match. But this time, I'm going to give a 5 out of 10. As we then got Rosa and Maya World versus Persephone and Shida, and they came out looking like they make attack stat, but Maya World and Thunder Rosa showed up for their tag match before anything could happen. Shida and We also had a nice sequence at the start. Both of them have been in AEW for years and know each other well, and you can see that chemistry on display. They were given more time than the Stanton fan, but some of it was taken up by a break, so it felt like they were a bit shortchanged. The second half, they fought harder than the first and gave all four a chance to stand out. Mai got the win for her team by pinning Shida, and yeah, overall it was okay, 6 out of 10 for me. And then we moved on to our main event. The Continental Challenge Cup continues with Jack Perry taking on John Moxley. The rules state that whoever wins the title wins the tournament, so for Moxley to remain champion, he has to win every single match, which puts more pressure on him than everyone else. They started with some simple grappling. Mox made a clean break for him, Perry backed him to the ropes. Jungle Jack seemed to have the upper handle. Mox kicked him out and into the air during a suicide dive with a single punch. But by the time we returned for a break, Mox had busted Perry open and was still firmly in control of the pace. They ended up feeling very different from everything else we saw on the show, but it was a good thing. Perry was the valiant underdog who gave the crowd hope, and Mox expertly played the main event heel who dominated most of the time. The ref almost called the match off because Perry was having trouble continuing, but he allowed it to carry on. The way they told this story was great, and it made the final few minutes of the match the best part of the show. After a long struggle, Perry finally succumbed to the sleeper, giving Mox the win. And yeah, like I said, this is a really fun match. I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. Overall, Dynamite gets a 6 out of 10 for me. It was a solid show all the way through, but it wasn't without flaws. The two women's matches were late additions to the card and felt crammed towards the end, but at least AEW found a good way to connect them through current feuds. The TBS bout was enjoyable, but there were 2 Continental Challenge Cup matches that were the biggest highlights of the show. Finley and White Power on a fun showing to close early in the night, but Moxley and Perry, had the best match, all in shaping to be one of the more interesting events of the year for AEW, and let's hope we can keep the momentum high going into the pay.
Guys, that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.